Welcome back to the Bourbon Note, everybody. I'm Ben. Got a whiskey on the bar tonight that not many people seem to like. Let's get into it. So on the bar tonight, I've got, bam, this is Knob Creek Bourbon and Rye. So this one, I've seen a couple reviews on it. I've kind of been meaning to pick this up for a while. When I first saw it, I was pretty interested in it. Saw some reviews that were less than favorable. I said in the intro that not many people seem to like. I guess I don't know if there's a ton of people that don't like it, but from what I've seen, I just don't think it really lives up to, I don't think there's hype around it, but just, I don't know. Anyway, let's get into the review. 113 proof Knob Creek mixture of bourbon and rye. And it says, it's got the ratios on here, 30% Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, 9 years aged, and 70% Kentucky straight rye whiskey, 7 years aged. So really, I mean, kind of basically just a mixture of Knob Creek rye and Knob Creek bourbon, basically, except it's 3 proof points higher. To the best of my knowledge, the rye is 100 proof as well, the regular rye. On the nose, it's got a nice nose to it. It kind of comes across as a high rye bourbon almost. A little bit of that waxy vanilla, zebra cake-like vanilla I tend to get off ryes. Some caramel in there, but it's kind of like a sugar water caramel, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, it's got a nice nose to it. It's got some nice oak notes to it, a little spice, a little sweetness. I think on the nose it leans into more like a high rye bourbon sort of profile, even though there's more rye in this than there is bourbon. But I think the Knob Creek rye in general is a low rye, kind of one of those barely legal ryes, as they say. Well, let's get into the palate, see what happens. Cheers. Off of that first sip, I really got mostly kind of an oaky and spicy sort of vibe. A decent amount of flavor. I mean, it kind of drinks to the, maybe a little less than 113, maybe closer to 100. But, yeah, I don't know. That seemed kind of not bad in any way, shape, or form, but kind of basic down the road, just kind of oaky and tannic with a little bit of rye spice to it. So this one, as I said at the beginning, it's 13 proof points higher than the regular, Knob Creek bourbon, and I believe the regular rye as well. The single barrels are higher than that, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of basic, but definitely not bad. Now the price on this runs around the $50 range in Minnesota. I happened to get this on a Black Friday sale, so I paid 35 bucks for it. So right off the bat, 35 bucks, no problem with that. I'm happy to have this one on the shelf for 35 bucks. Based on that first sip, do I think it's anything special? No, not really, but definitely a decent whiskey. Let's go in for another sip, examine this one a little bit more. On that second sip, not much changed. Some of the sweeter notes came through a little bit. It's a little thin up front, and then it kind of has a nice spice in the middle, and there's some of those sweet, kind of that sugar water caramel. When I say sugar water caramel, I mean like a caramel. Picture a caramel flavor that's a little watered down, but like there's a little kind of like a white sugar note there. I know that may sound weird, but it's very real to me. And some spice, some of that vanilla's there. But mainly this is kind of peppery and spicy. A kind of nice mix of the rye spice, but also a barrel spice. And I don't know, it's not bad, but it's kind of basic. Definitely drinks like a burr rye, where you can definitely get both flavor profiles in there. It does say some notes on here, which I did not really pay attention to, but it says notes of vanilla, caramel, and pepper. And to be perfectly honest, that's pretty much on point. That's a good way to describe this whiskey, except I would add a little bit of tannic oak note on top of there, which I think is a little dominant, to be honest. It definitely has the notes that they have labeled there, but I think they left that oak note off of there. At least that's what I'm getting a lot of. Let's go in for one more sip before we give the final thoughts. So the one thing that I would say I don't like about this is it's lacking sweetness. I tend to like sweet bourbons. I don't mind sometimes when they're just like a nice, good, spicy profile. But this one is kind of like, the pepper that they have labeled on here is definitely dominant over the caramel and vanilla that they're mentioning on the label. But I gotta tell you, that tannic oak note is really, really there. It's a very kind of like, there's just not a lot of nuance to it. It just kind of is what it is. It's pretty basic. It's not bad, but it's not something I would probably buy again. For the 35 bucks I paid for it, I'm perfectly happy with that. I'll definitely easily make my way through this bottle, but I wouldn't buy another one. And honestly, for 10 bucks more, I'd rather just get a store pick of either the rye or the bourbon rather than picking up another one of these. I am a little bit surprised that it is just kind of that spice and oak with very, very light sweetness. It's not thin in the sense that it's proofed down too much, but there's not much viscosity to it, not much mouthfeel. It just kind of, like I said, it's just kind of a one-trick pony, I guess. It's just kind of right down the middle of that oak and spice lane, and that's all it does. So if you like that, this might be one for you. But yeah, I think, you know, for the $50, I'd rather pick something else up. But let me know if you have had this. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'd love to hear more opinions on this because, like I said, the ones that I have seen have not been favorable. And I guess I wouldn't say this isn't a good whiskey. It's just I don't really know what the purpose of it is. You know, it's not... I think the regular rye is maybe a little bit better. The regular Knob Creek is maybe a little bit better. It almost seems to me like they maybe just took barrels that they weren't super thrilled with and just tried to blend them together and make something different just to get rid of the whiskey. And that, to be honest, just, that would explain this. But again, it's not that it's bad. It's just, you know, so that's it. Again, let me know in the comments if you've had this one, what your opinion is of it. This has been Knob Creek Bourbon and Rye on the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben. We'll see you on the next one.